Okay, in this episode I'm going to be demonstrating a couple different concepts. We're going to be showing you how to do a little basic compositing and some animation. Now the definition of compositing is basically combining two images on the screen at the same time. I'm going to show you the basics here of a composite. I'm going to grab a shot here where I got the in and out points. I'm just going to bring the video down actually. So I've got two different shots here in the timeline, and this is actually the most basic, one of the most basic forms of a composite. I'm going to do Command D and add a cross dissolve. Now basically this will fade, this will dissolve from one shot to the next as we play through this, dissolves from one shot to the next. And we have two different images on the screen at the same time. It's combining two different images. That is a composite. That's a very basic composite. If we want to start showing some a little bit more complex composites, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to grab this image. I'm going to hold the Option down and arrow up. It'll move it up. And I'm going to grab this and move it over the top of this one. And the way Premiere works is as you're playing, it will show this clip right here on your video 1 line. And then if anything is above that, it will automatically cut to this shot. So as we play here, watch this, it will suddenly cut to that shot. And then if this shot is short enough when it finishes, it will cut back to this shot. Just like that. So whatever is on top, it will cut to. It takes priority. And this is basically like stacking up an image on top of another right here. So since this is the exact same size, we cannot see the image below it. If we go to our effects controls and grab our scale under motion, so right now I've got this top clip selected. I've got the effects control panel open, and these are the basic attributes that belong to this clip. I'm going to grab the scale and take it down a little bit, and you'll notice now that it's a different size, we are seeing the video clip below it. If we take its position and move it around, we will see the clip below it. And then one other thing to notice here is if we take the opacity and turn this down on the top one here. If you're not seeing the opacity, by the way, just go up to your wrench and turn on the video keyframes. Tell this to show video keyframes, and it will show these lines right here. And then you're able to control opacity just by simply grabbing this line and dragging it down. And now that's about 50%. Now this clip is somewhat transparent. It's about half transparent, and we are seeing through it to the clip below it. If we grab this clip and put it on top, we will see nothing because this one is completely hiding the one below it. So if we grab one other clip here, have an in point and out point, and we grab this video, just the video part, drag it down inside. Now we have this on top. Let's do the same thing. Select this, go to effects controls, go to the motion, and scale this down, move this position. Now I'm just clicking on these numbers and dragging with my mouse, and I'm moving them over. So you just click and drag. So we've got this one on top, this one next, and then the one on the bottom. And if you play this, notice this clip will just cut in right here. They're both playing at the same time. And all of a sudden we cut to that clip at 50% opacity and then cut out of it. So a little weird, but that's kind of the way the compositing works in Premiere. Now let's show animation, how animation works. I'm going to select this clip on the bottom, and I'm going to go to the effects controls panel, which is already open. I'm going to hit this arrow down here, and what we've got over here, I'm going to move this over so we get a little bit more room, and move this over so we have a little bit more room here. This is our keyframing area right here. All these attributes are keyframable, which basically means that you can change these attributes over time. So we've got position, scale, rotation, anchor point, anti-flicker, opacity, all these things in here that are inherent to every single clip that you put into this timeline. So right now let's animate our position. What we're going to do here, these are your little keyframe or toggle animation buttons here. You hit these, you hit this button right here, and it will turn on the animation for this clip. And it'll add what is called a keyframe. In time, this is the duration of the clip right here, and what a keyframe does is tells it where that attribute needs to be at this point in time. And if you add several keyframes, it will interpolate between the keyframes and change those attributes gradually over time. So right now, let's do this. Let's do a simple scale here. I'm going to actually add one to my scale. I'm going to turn off my position, clear that, turn on my scale, and it's added the first keyframe. Let's say from this point to this point here, I'm going to go over here. So I've got it turned on. Right here is how you turn on the animation, and then this is your keyframe adder. And the toggle animation, remember, adds its first keyframe, so I'm going to add one right here. So right here on this exact keyframe and on this exact keyframe, I'm still at 100% scale. I'm going to go to the first one here and say at this point I do want it to be 100% scale. Now the way you land on a keyframe, you got to make sure that you land on keyframes, because if you try to eyeball it and get it on a keyframe and you try to add one like this, what it's actually done, if we zoom up on this now, I'm going to hit plus and zoom up, you'll see there's a second keyframe, and this can screw you up. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to arrow this to the left, which will land on that exact keyframe. Now that's the keyframe I'm going to be changing. I'm going to zoom out, minus, minus, minus. And I'm going to change the scale here to well, let's go like 130. Actually, I'll just click on this and type in 130 to be exact. So now it will animate from 100 to 130 here. So let's go back and watch this as I play. Hit the first keyframe and look at it start zooming. And it kind of cut off his head. So one other thing I can do here, let's go to this second one here. I'm going to actually go to 150, make it a little more extreme. Is at this point I want it to be reframed, and I've cut off his head because it zoomed right up to the center. So I'm going to go to my position, turn that on, and it's added a keyframe at this exact point. I'm going to arrow back on my scale, so I land on this first keyframe and add a keyframe right there on my position. So I've got two keyframes. Here is normal. Right here it's cutting off his head. So I'm going to grab my vertical position and move it over and reframe that to end on his face. So now that will actually tilt down from here to here. It will tilt down. So now it looks like the camera is keeping framed. We play through this. And we've got a zoom. And if you're starting out with a low resolution, like a 720 resolution, you won't be able to zoom up as much. This is 4K footage, so you can zoom up almost double and it will still look pretty good. Move that down a little bit more, right there. Okay, that zoom looks pretty good. Only thing is here, the only issue is that it looks a little mechanical with that zoom when it starts doing the zoom. So right here, you notice it just suddenly starts zooming. It goes from 0 to like 100% speed there on the zoom, and then suddenly just comes to a sudden stop, which isn't very natural. So what I'm going to do to make this a little bit more gradual here, so it starts off a little bit more smooth, is I'm going to right-click on the first keyframe. I'm going to ease out of this keyframe into that move there. I'm going to say ease out. And now watch what happens. It won't be this all of a sudden jerk that just like starts quickly. It will be this kind of smooth, gradual ease in there. And we did have it like zoom up a little bit on the, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of the position right now. And now watch this as it gradually moves in. See how that's more of a gradual zoom in there? And now I can change the position. I'm going to have the position change after it started the move a little bit, about right there. And I'm going to have it end at that point right there. And I'm going to bring this down. So now it will do this gradual move. It'll ease into that. I'm going to tell it to ease into this one here. So it eases out of that keyframe and eases into this one. And that will be more smooth. Eases in. And now it looks like more of this gradual, natural zoom. And there we go. So that makes it a little bit more gradual. And those are kind of the basics of keyframing. You can kind of make it do anything you want to here. I'm going to get rid of these. Let's make the scale a little bit smaller here. And I'm going to make the scale a little bit smaller. I'm going to turn off the keyframing, just make it this small for the entire duration of the clip. I'm going to put in a keyframe here, put in a keyframe here, and just kind of randomly put keyframes in. I'm going to jump to the first keyframe and say at this point, I want it to be over here. At the next keyframe, I want it to be over here and a little down. And then on the next keyframe, I want it to be over here and up. So now it will travel from here to here to here, and this video kind of moves around. I just want to show this. This is kind of basic animation here. And there we go. Just so you know how that works. I'm going to clear off all my keyframes here by hitting toggle animation and saying OK, clears them all. I'm going to reset my position, reset my scale. One other thing before we kind of get on to a little bit more complex animation here is showing that how you have access to all these controls. You have rotate, you have the scale, and you have the position, and you have an anchor point. Anchor point, you can change where it's going to rotate around. Right now it's rotating around the center point. If we rotate here, it's rotating around a center point. If we change that, it'll change where it rotates from. It just changed the anchor point. So now as we rotate, it's rotating around a kind of a pinned anchor point right around here. So let's clear all these. And now I'm going to show this little wireframe right here. This wireframe, you click on this, and what it does is it adds a wireframe around the video, which gives you pretty much access to almost all these features over here. It adds these nodes around the edge. If you grab one of these nodes here, you can click and drag it in, and it will change your scale. And you'll see your scale reflected change. You'll see your scale changes reflected right here numerically. Now if you take your mouse around the edge here, right there, you get a rotate. You can click and rotate this video around the anchor point. This is the actual anchor point. You can simply grab the image and change its position vertically and horizontally, just like that, and you'll see the numbers reflecting that change right there. You can grab your anchor point right there. It brings up this little kind of square around it with the arrows. You grab that and you can change your anchor point quite easily as well. You move that up to the corner, and now watch what happens when we rotate, take it around the corner. It'll rotate around that anchor point as opposed to being centered in the middle. And that's all done by clicking on this little wireframe icon right there. We'll bring the wireframe icon up for that specific image. I'm going to reset all this. And now let's do a little bit more of a complex animation here. Let's do kind of a cool little intro to this, a little bit of a montage with some animation and scaling and whatnot. Okay, so let's get to doing some compositing and animation here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with a wide shot, and I'm going to do this animation where this image, we get like several images here on the same screen. So let's give this a try. So I'm going to start out with this wide shot here, and then we're going to cut. So what this guy is doing is he's walking by, and then this guy throws the newspaper and then follows him. So I'm going to grab this entire shot right here. I'm going to grab just the video, drag it down into my timeline. Now we're going to composite two other shots. What we're going to do is we're going to have this playing as the guy comes walking through. And right about there, I want this to shrink down to this bottom half of the screen and animate in another clip of this guy walking, a medium shot of this guy walking. So I'm going to grab the medium shot. Here's the medium shot that I want to use. I'm going to get this so it's timed out about the same. Let's get him right when he walks through the door there, and get the same shot here, right where he walks through the door there, about the same spot, in point. Going to leave a random out point there. I'm going to drag it in, drop it. Let's extend this so it meets the end right there. Now it just does a cut to him walking through the doorway. But as he passes this other fellow, what I'm going to do is just turn this layer off right there so I can see the layer below it. And I'm going to grab the medium shot of the guy sitting against the wall waiting here. So as this fellow passes by, I'm going to get that timed so it has the exact same timing right there, in point, leave kind of an open out point, and get this so it's going to match right about there. So those 2 points pretty much match right there. I'm going to grab the video, drag it in, drop it there. Grab this and trim it so they all end at the same time. I'm going to trim this backwards. So those are all essentially matched now. So what's going to happen is we're going to start on this wide shot. We're going to have it animate down to the bottom, and then this one, oops, turn that back on. And then this one will animate onto the screen, and while he's walking, this one will animate onto the screen as well. So right now, I'm going to turn off the top 2 tracks. I'm going to go to the bottom here, and let's do that animation first. So right here as he's walking, I'm going to trim that backwards just so we have a little more time for animation. As he's walking, right there I want the animation to start. I want this thing to shrink down. So we are going to create an opacity mask on this thing right here, a square opacity mask. I'm going to hit the little square right there. I'm going to grab the node, and this creates a mask here. And grab this and drag it over. If I hold down my shift key while I do that, watch what happens if I move it around. It'll move up and down, but if I hold down my shift key while I'm moving that, it'll lock it to that horizontal position right there. I'm going to move it over. I'm going to grab this one, move it over. So I'm going to create the mask where I want it to be. Now I'm going to grab this node and hold down shift, drag it over, and grab this one and hold down shift and drag it over. So I grab it first, then hold down shift as I start moving it. And actually I want that a little bit lower, so I'm going to hold down shift and click on this node so I have both of those nodes selected. I hold down shift. I'm going to expand this just a little bit, make it about that big right there. That's what I'm going to end up with. But where do I want that to end up with? I want that to end up in that position by the time this video clip starts. So I'm going to arrow down on my timeline, land on that edit right there. Now I'm going to add a keyframe on my mask path here. I'm going to start it right there. That's where it's going to end up right there. So now I'm going to move back about, let's say about a second. So I'm going to hold down shift and arrow back. That's 5 frames, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that's 30 frames back. Right there I'm going to add a new keyframe. And now I'm going to grab my mask and expand this up. And now I'm going to grab this, zoom it out a bit so I can kind of see, oops, that's a 4K, so I'm going to take that down to 10%. And I'm going to grab this keyframe here. And so now on this keyframe, I'm going to tell it I want the mask at this position where it's not hiding anything. So I'm going to move this up, this one, move it down, this one, move it down. So right there, at this point, on this keyframe, the mask is not doing anything. And everything before that, it's not doing anything. It's expanded fully, so you see the full image. But by this one, it's going to shrink down. So watch what happens now as we play this. Let me zoom back to fit there. As we play through this, you'll see the mask shrink down to that point there. So we did a little animation from here to here, telling it to shrink that mask down. Now I want to also move this. So I'm going to play through this. And what we can do is I want this shrink to happen a little bit sooner before this clip down here cuts in. So what I'm going to do, first of all, let's make the animation for the movement here. I'm going to add position keyframe right there. That's where it's going to start. I'm going to go shift to the right arrow, 5 frames, 10 frames, 15 frames. And I'm going to add another keyframe. Actually, you don't even have to add, once you've added one keyframe, if I just go out and move this, it's going to create a keyframe for me. Let me show you this. So I'm going to turn on my wireframe, grab this, and drag down. I'm going to hold shift to constrain it to its vertical position there. And I'm going to move it down, and that's right about where I want it to end. I'm going to let go, and boom, it created a keyframe for me. So now let's watch this, what it does. So we get the crop and the move down at the same time. Once again, it does the crop, and then it animates down. Now, if I want to change the timing on this, say I want all this to happen a little bit earlier, I'm going to grab all my keyframes like this, and I'm just going to drag them backwards a little ways. Let's go to the beginning of the clip, see if that happens before this second clip comes in. I'm going to turn this to quarter resolution so it plays back a little better. There's the crop, there's the movement. There we go. So now let's get to the end of this keyframe right there. That's where I want this next clip to come in. And select that clip, and let's animate this clip. So, let's turn on that track there. Now it moves in. Let me go up to the motion right here, turn the motion on, go up to the wireframe, turn the wireframe on, there it is, and I'm going to size this thing to where I want to kind of make it end up. And shrink that down, move it up here, move it right about there. And I want to leave a little bit of room, a little bit more room, about half and half the room over here for the other clip. So I'm going to mask this, but I'm not going to animate it, just going to mask it. So I'm going to go to Opacity, turn on my square mask here, grab this, move it up, and hold down Shift. Grab this, move it up, right there. Grab this one, move it up, right there. This one down. Grab this one, hold down Shift, and move it down. Right there. And I want this expanded out a little bit more. So I've got one node selected, hold down Shift, select the next node, and I'm going to drag this out here. And I want it to end right about there to leave room. So now I'm going to deselect that node, move that up a little bit so it shows a full frame. There we go. So we're going to show about that much of the image. But now I want that to animate onto the screen. So right here, that moves down. Notice it just cuts right on right now. Boom, it cuts right on. I want to move that on. So what I'm going to do is select the clip, go to the beginning of the clip, add a keyframe on position, play into it a little bit. Let's go in 15 frames, shift, arrow right, arrow right, arrow right. That's 15 frames. Add another keyframe. I'm going to go to the beginning keyframe here and move that up. So the second keyframe is where I want it to end up at. The first keyframe, the first keyframe, I'm going to move the horizontal line and move that over till it is off screen. So now as we play, boom, it flies onto the screen. And now I want the next one to move in. So I'm going to back time this one a little bit, select it, turn that track back on. I've got it turned off. So let's go up to motion and turn on the wireframe. Shrink this. And what I could do actually is I want it to be the same size as this one here. So I can actually go to my scale, look at it, it's 54.4. Go to this one and make it at 54.4. There we go. And I want it in the exact same position up here on the same vertical position. So I'm going to go to the other clip and look at the vertical position. So I'm going to go down to the bottom one here, select it, get its vertical position right there, copy it at 654, select the top one, pop it in there, and paste it. 654 gets it up on the same vertical position, so it's exactly lined up with that. Now I can just slide it over to the left until I get it where I want to. Right there, but I want to crop the edge so I get that little bar in between. Go down to opacity, turn on my square. So I'm going to select this, and hold down Shift, move them up, I mean, just grab these individually, whatever works. Grab this one. I'm holding down Shift to select multiple nodes. Hold down Shift to constrain it to the horizontal position. Move it over right there. Now grab this, put that down. And now grab these two and get them exactly where I want them to crop at. Right there, and leave a little bar in between. Okay, so let's animate this one now. From the beginning, let's get to the beginning of the clip. Add a position keyframe, play, and skip 15 frames. Shift 1, 2, 3, goes 15 frames. Add one more keyframe, go to the beginning keyframe, and move that over to the left. There we go. So now we've got that little animation that takes place, that moves in, and now that moves in. Okay, last thing we probably do is ease into those ending keyframes. I'm going to right-click on this keyframe here. We're on this clip here. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to tell it to ease into that keyframe. Same on this clip. We're going to go to the ending keyframe, tell it to ease in. And let's go to this one, and we'll do the same in the position. I'm going to grab both of those. I'm going to grab the first one, tell it to ease out of that one. And go to the next one and tell it to ease in. There we go. Let's take a look at that. Now it kind of eases into those positions and looks a little bit smoother. And I want this one to happen maybe a little bit sooner. I'm going to drag that back right about there. And now I just have to grab those two keyframes and drag them back to the beginning, right there. So now it will happen at the beginning. So boom, boom. And everything is happening at the same time there. It looks pretty good. There we go. And that's kind of basic animation with Premiere and showing how to do some compositing and cropping and animation on the cropping and things like that. So if you have any questions, please post them. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight. Thanks.